All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're looking at the phylum Echinodermata. We're almost through animal biology now. These ones basically are starfish, sea urchins, or sea cucumbers, along with some others that we'll take a peek at. So the phylum level characteristics that we're going to be looking at are the following. They have radial symmetry. So this is getting back away from the bilateral symmetry. They have their pattern of 5. In the larvae stage, they actually do have bilateral symmetry, but in their adult stage, it's going to be radial. Water vascular system is something we'll look into in a little bit of detail. It's essentially how they're going to be walking, how they use for their locomotion or movement. What it means is they have these little tube feet on the bottoms of their legs there, and they use water to essentially create a hydraulic system in order to lift and drop their legs. And it's also used for feeding. They have spiny skin. More specifically, they have an endoskeleton made up of calcium. And this is essentially the closest related invertebrate to humans due to that in an endoskeleton. So you can pause that and get that down if you need to. Okay, so for feeding, how are they going to get their food? They are carnivores, which means they eat meat. And this is specifically the starfish, and they use those tube feet to pry open the shells. So when you have those clams that are really closed in there, as you can see, here's the tube feet, which act as suction cups, and they're able to pry apart these bivalves, which we'll see coming up next, which are essentially mollusks. And what they do is when they have them open, it flips its stomach out of its body, out of its mouth, and pours out enzymes which are used to break down the thing that they're eating, and it dissolves in its own shell, and we'll see an example of this in a minute. When dinner is finished, the starfish moves its stomach back and leaves just an empty shell behind. And it also eats snails, corals, and other echinoderms, and again we'll see a video of this gigantic starfish in a few minutes and what it preys on. Okay, continuing on with feeding, there's also some herbivores. These would be the sea urchins. What they do is they scrape algae from the rocks using their jaw, which essentially has 5 teeth or 5 parts. And we'll see an example of this when we see the giant kelp that gets demolished by our sea urchins. There's also filter feeders like sea lilies and basket stars. And they use their 2 feet to capture plankton, which are the almost microscopic photosynthetic organisms in the water. And then there's also detritus feeders, which is dead and decaying matter, and these are the sea cucumbers that eat those ones. Okay. So you can jot those down. Pause it if you need to. Okay, so respiration, how do they exchange their gases? Most of them are going to just be using diffusion, like most of the other ones that we've seen as well. And what they do is they diffuse across the thin walls in their tube feet. There are some exceptions that have something called skin gills, which, if you look around here, the skin gills essentially allow gas exchange to occur. They increase surface area just like normal gills. How do they transport all of those gases and other nutrients? They don't have a specified circulatory system. So what it does is it uses the removal of these metabolic wastes through their tube feet or skin gills. And the nutrients distributed by digestive glands and fluid within the body cavity. So there's no set closed circulatory system. It's just going to be using diffusion in order to get their nutrients from one spot to the next. Okay, excretion, how does it get rid of the nitrogenous waste? The solid waste exits through the anus. However, in the brittle star, there is no anus, so it's going to come right back out through the mouth, just like Platyhelminthes. Metabolic waste, so there's nitrogen waste, such as ammonia, is going to diffuse out of the tube feet or skin gills, like we just mentioned. So in a nutshell, diffusion is the big way for movement of gases in the Echinodermata. Pause that if you need to get it down. So response, the nervous system, it just has a primitive nervous system. There's no cephalization, which means there's no concentrated brain in near the head. What it does have, similar to the Cnidarians, is they have a nerve ring around the mouth and radial nerves connecting to the body sections. So it's able to respond to the stimulus if it senses there's prey out there. And the most important spot for it's going to be getting into the mouth, so there's the nerves around that area as well. So they have these cells to detect the food, and then they also, which are essentially going to be eye spots at the end of each, as you can see here, each leg. There'll be a spot where they can sense their food. And then some have statocysts, which are essentially similar to accelerometers in physics, where it can tell you if it's going to be up or down. So if you flip a starfish over on its back, it's going to try to get back onto its tummy again. Oops. So you can copy those down if you need to. Pause it, I mean. So movement. So this is the big one. We're going to do a lot of depth in the starfish movement in class. There's a lot of diversity in terms of its movement. Most of them use the tube feet and muscle fibers attached to endoskeleton plates in order to move. Some creep, some crawl, and some flap around in order to swim. But like I said, we're going to focus on the starfish for its movement. So you can pause that.
The water vascular system is going to be broken down into madreporite, stone canal, ring canal, radial canal, ampulla, and tube feet.
So reproduction. Usually they have separate sexes, but there are some hermaphroditic ones as well. In order for the sexual or the separate sexes to reproduce, they're going to be using external fertilization, which means the sperm is going to be broadcasted and fertilize the egg. The larvae are free swimming, which again makes sense because they don't want to share their nutrients. They want their offsprings to go away so they can get their own nutrients. And then they can also reproduce asexually via fragmentation. You guys might have heard the story about fishermen. We're getting frustrated that the starfish were eating things in their nets and getting caught up there, so they started cutting them in half and throwing them back in the water, which all that did was just double them up and continue to grow. Okay, so here's some different classes. You basically just need to know just some other examples. Starfish, brittle stars, which we'll see in a minute, sea urchins and sand dollars, sea cucumbers, which kind of just look like little larvae, but bigger obviously, and then the sea lilies and sea pens and feather stars.
The most fearsome predator here is a giant. The sunflower starfish is a meter across, with an appetite for brittle stars. It uses its feet to taste for prey. When its actions are speeded up, it becomes clear that the predator's fondness for the brittle stars is almost matched by the brittle star's ability to get out of the way. Sand dollars, flat sea urchins, cluster together as a defense. But it doesn't seem to work against the sunflower starfish. The predator extrudes its stomach and wraps it around its victims, liquefying their soft parts. Nothing is left of them except their white skeletons.
Ecology, and this is what one of the videos will show us, can be really destructive. So the big one that you guys will see is sea urchins and how they are can negatively affect the kelp beds off the coast of BC. They essentially eat the holdfast, which is what the kelp uses to hold onto rocks, and then if they can't hold on to where they need to be, they end up floating away.
Life in the kelp is as full of drama as in any other forest. But the cast is less familiar. An army of sea urchins is mounting an attack. The urchin plague strikes at the kelp's holdfasts, their crucial attachments to the rock. Holdfasts are extremely tough, but each urchin has 5 teeth, which are self-sharpening and are replaced every few months. Urchins fell vast areas of kelp forest, creating clearings known as urchin barrens.